New this morning, parents and teachers, you need to come to your screen for a minute. We promise this is well worth the next 2 minutes of your time.
E-cigarettes, vaping.
Popular vaping device.
The flavorings used in many brands of e-cigarettes.
One of these is an e-cigarette and one of these is a USB stick. If you don't know what a Juul looks like, you couldn't even tell the difference, and teenagers are counting on that.
It's meant to help adult smokers quit, but teens are being enticed by the cool factor, the flavors. It's sleek, it's slim, you can hold it in the palm of your hand.
And we're doing the Juul Hot Box, man. We have 2 Juuls, we got a Breeze.
There's nothing better than a fresh pod. So satisfying.
So that little thing has more nicotine than a pack of cigarettes.
An entire pack of cigarettes, a few little drops of this liquid gets into your brain, and you get addicted for life.
Wow.
I'm Audrey Darville. I'm an associate professor in the College of Nursing. I work with the Breathe. It's a research group here looking at clean air, healthy policy, and I work with the tobacco treatment arm of the Breathe team. You know, I think that anytime that somebody's putting foreign substances in their lungs, there's cause for concern. Because I'm a healthcare provider, I see it from the perspective of a healthcare provider. I also see it from the perspective of a tobacco treatment specialist, because I know that tobacco smoking is the #1 cause of preventable death worldwide. And so I'm concerned when people get addicted to nicotine, because that's the hook in the tobacco. And they say, the CDC, the World Health Organization, all say nothing kills like tobacco. So it's important that people don't start.
My name is Logan Ashcraft. I'm a manager at Lexington Vapor. I've been working here for about probably 3.5 years now. Just people wanting to get off cigarettes. Just a lot of people are not wanting to smoke anymore, really. People really start to see the health effects of constant smoking, and they're seeing people switch to these devices and feel a lot better. So I believe that's probably why they're switching. So it's picked up popularity.
One of the problems is that we talk about e-cigarettes like they're one thing, and they're not. There are about 400 different devices, 7,000 flavorings, hundreds of other chemicals, that go into a mix. There's generally about 40 to 60 chemicals, but again, it's not regulated, so we don't know. There's no labeling required. But clearly fewer chemicals than are in combustible cigarettes. But to look at the health effects we're dealing with, if you do the math on that, the potential combinations of things and exposures, it's really challenging to see what people are really being exposed to sort of out in a real world setting. So the studies that are being done more in a controlled laboratory setting, but isn't necessarily going to capture all of the population effects. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
Typically around early 20s to anywhere 70s, 80s. I've seen a lot of older people.
Absolutely targeting youth, no question about it. The industry has known for a long time that flavorings is very important, and with the sales and the promotion of a lot of these youth-based flavorings, cotton candy. It's funny to think, do they really think that we're that stupid that we think that, cotton candy e-juice is going to appeal to a 60-year-old tobacco smoker who's trying to quit because they have lung cancer? It's not the demographic that they're targeting. They're not fooling anyone, but they keep doing it.
Well, with the flavorings, honestly, I don't really agree with the FDA trying to get rid of the flavorings, just because the majority of people that get in here, they're not wanting to use a tobacco or a menthol flavor. They're wanting to get as far removed from tobacco as they can. So typically, a lot of these flavors, even though they are food-based, candy, fruit, something like that, there are a lot of older people who do enjoy those flavors, and that's the majority of people that we sell these types of flavors to. You know, it's not really the younger crowd.
Tobacco use rates have been on the decline, you know, kind of stagnated a while, but clearly with youth they had really started declining until the advent of e-cigarettes, and now with Juuls it's just going way up in the last couple of years.
Yeah, a lot of my friends really like their Juuls. I do Juul occasionally.
I am addicted to the Juul.
If you look online, you know, a lot of the ads, they use very ambiguous models, I think, for these ads. You know, they could be 12, could be 30, you know, and that it's intentional. It's intentional. The biggest concern right now are the meteoric rise of Juuls. And the reason that we're so concerned about that is because they contain very high levels of nicotine. They changed how they developed the Juul, and you know, they made a nicotine salt with it to make it more make it more accessible to the body, and to provide it in higher concentrations and smaller, you know, amounts of liquid. Juuls have changed the equation on that, sort of like Marlboro changed the equation on nicotine addiction a number of years ago when they introduced ammonia to freebase nicotine, make it more bioavailable. Same thing, you know, or it's not exactly the same biochemically, but similar concept with Juuls now. So the concern with younger people using this is that they're getting hooked and using higher levels of nicotine much faster. Each Juul pod contains the equivalent of a pack of cigarette, roughly a pack of cigarettes, cigarette worth of nicotine. Some studies have found that the other pods that are being sold, you know, may contain more or less. Again, no regulation, so you know, really a great unknown. But the goal is to get people hooked, and so nicotine does affect the developing brain. And so if we expose younger people to high levels of nicotine, they're going to keep buying those products.
Per week, I think I would spend around $20.
A couple of my friends buy packs a couple times a week. Some of them a little less frequently than that, though.
Too much.
Too much. I generally spend the most money toward Juuls.
We know that the adverse effects of nicotine, although it's not the worst adverse effects that you get exposed to in a conventional cigarette, it does have physiologic properties that adversely affect the body. Probably the most well-known studies, you probably have heard about the formaldehyde that they found. It's actually because of the heating of the chemicals in most of the e-juices. When they're heated, they form aldehydes, and so those have known carcinogenic properties. The levels that people are exposed to are all over the map. So you know, they found some electronic cigarettes had higher levels than a traditional cigarette. Some clearly had lower. So again, you know, the lack of regulation is a problem in figuring out exactly what's in there.
I think there's a lot of things that we don't know about Juuls yet, and so that's kind of concerning.
I guess research is still looking into it because it's relatively new compared to cigarettes. So
I haven't looked into it, but I know they're not good for your health.
I do think that there are health risks because the pods do have nicotine in them, I believe, and so even though it's not like a cigarette or like chewing tobacco, like it's still causing health issues because it is nicotine.
We know that some youth are basically hooked from the first cigarette or hooked from the first use. You know, their brain is primed and ready. And so the more nicotine we expose people to in these devices, thinking, oh, you know, I'm just using it on the weekend or, you know, at a party, you know, eventually it starts to escalate just because the nicotine is so addictive.
I tried to set a limit that I would only Juul on the weekends.
I do not want to get addicted. That is the reason why I do not own a Juul.
just don't want anything to do with nicotine or anything like that.
Usually I don't have withdrawals because I'm buying the pods as soon as I run out, but if I don't have it for about 2 days, I'll get anxious.
They say that they quit for like a day or something and then they go right back to it, so.
I actually had pneumonia and I couldn't vape for about 2 weeks, and I wasn't, I didn't have any kind of like withdrawals or anything like that, so I didn't feel like I was truly like addicted to it like I was with cigarettes, because you know, if I didn't have a cigarette during the day, I was crawling up the walls, you know. But with this stuff, I feel on edge because I'm not getting the nicotine, but it's not all the MAOIs, all the weird shit that they put to actual tobacco. So typically with this, usually most people will kind of wean themselves off of cigarettes. They'll kind of use a vape and then use just like a few cigarettes throughout the day. They'll kind of cut down, kind of harm reduction, I guess you could call it. But then eventually, you know, people will try to put down the cigarettes completely, just go with vaping. And then, like I said, you know, they may eventually pick up a larger device, go in it with a kind of hobby mindset, or they may just drop it completely and just, you know, say, I'm healthy, I'm going to drop it.
So in terms of potential positives, you know, I work with tobacco cessation. We have 7 medications. We've had 7 medications, no new medications, probably in the past 10, 15 years or so. So clearly we're not getting everyone to quit with our existing repertoire of medications. So the idea of having e-cigarettes as a choice for people to help them quit is very appealing. They appeal to people. You know, it has the same sort of look and feel as a traditional cigarette.
I was smoking about 2 packs a day. When I did smoke, I did really like my cigarettes, like a lot. But with these, once I actually did kick my original habit after about 6 months of vaping, it was really just, I mean.
Now, I think if there were some way to develop and design these devices so that they do truly produce the least amount of harm possible and are used in an evidence-based way to help people quit, yeah, I think that would be great. Do I think there's any positives for youth using them? I really honestly can't see any, because I think the industry is using these products, and I think that's Juul, you know, has really brought that to the forefront to get people addicted. But the bottom line to me, and the way that I explain it, is that, you know, we have something, we know nothing kills like tobacco, the deadliest substance, right? Not, you know, you'd be hard pressed to find something that kills people as much as tobacco does worldwide. So when we're looking at these different devices, multitude of devices, you know, we're looking at something that is likely less harmful, but how much less harmful? You know, we can't quantify that. There are some red flags related to some of these health effects, but you know, we don't know. We have no idea where we are in this continuum. And I think that, you know, anything that you read or people tell you that, you know, oh, you know, the harm is way down here versus here or here. I mean, they're just kind of making that up in my read of the literature. And I read this literature daily. There's new things coming out every day, so.